everyone, welcome to another interesting edition of Real Talk with Miss-Vivi. Right now, I am at Bella Center where the 2016 Women Deliver Conference is going on. We have all the powerful women all around the world attending this conference. And it's an honor to have this distinguished guest on my show today. She is the CEO and founder of Wellbeing Foundation of Africa, and she is also the wife of the Senate President of Nigeria. Yes, I'm talking about Her Excellency, Mrs. Toyin Saraki. Welcome to the show, Mrs. Toyin Saraki.
Thank you very much.
How is it like to be here today?
Well, it's amazing. You know, I've been coming to Women Deliver since 2007, which was the very first Women Deliver, and it was held in London. At that time, I had been raising the alarm in Nigeria about our alarmingly high rates of maternal mortality. And in those days, I used to feel like I was the only person who was finding this unreasonable and unconscionable. So I came then to Women Deliver because I realized that there were people around the world who were beginning to harness the solutions that were going to help women live. And I've been coming ever since. The organizers of Women Deliver are really, really committed to bringing together the best brains in the world, the best innovation in the world. And it's a very unusual platform in that this is a platform where everybody meets equally. So from the 15-year-old girl guide to the 55-year-old midwife to the 60-year-old professor to the 21-year-old young mother, you can just come to Women Deliver, and it's like a big university for that period of days. And all the excellence is here, all the ideas are here, all the evidence is here, all the implementation is here. And I think it's a huge honor. It's a big gift, actually, to be able to come to Women Deliver.
Oh, yeah. And it's really, really great to have you here. And I saw that you were at the panel as well with the powerful, right? It's powerful women. The Prime Minister, former Prime Minister of Denmark was there, and different distinguished guests were there as well. And you made a very beautiful speech, you know, about you being a woman in Nigeria, and of course about your organization and why you decided to, you know, have a foundation called Wellbeing Foundation Africa. And of course, we're going to talk about that because you just mentioned something about, you know, child and maternal mortality, which is it's a huge problem in Nigeria. Like Nigeria being the fact that is the highest second rate country in the world that is dealing with child and maternal mortality. So please tell me about that. What is your organization doing to reduce that rate?
Well, you know, my organization started from my own personal experience. I had almost lost my life in childbirth, and I lost a child and one survived. And I realized that what helped me to survive were a few things. First of all, there was financial inclusion, so I had choices. Then there was education and information, and being able to comprehend that information and to process that information helped me a lot. And then the fact that I did deliver in a properly equipped medical hospital with a doctor who was prepared to keep records, to review those records, and to apply the evidence to my situation. And I then came to the conclusion that the reason why a lot of our women are dying in childbirth is because those factors, which I would call social determinants, were not there for them. And you know, when I was lying in the hospital bed, I was begging God, I was promising God all sorts of things. But the one promise I did make to God was that if He allowed me to survive, I would use whatever I had to try to make sure that women who found themselves in the same situation as me were helped. And that's why I started the foundation, and that's why all these years, you know, I'm still focused now. My focus remains the same, to save lives in pregnancy, childbirth, and in the under fives. But over the years, I've approached it in different ways. So very, very early on, I approached it actually very simply by trying to pay people's hospital bills.
Oh, wow.
You know, in Nigeria, if you go and have a baby and you have a cesarean and you can't pay, the hospital detains you. And some people are detained for months. They detain you until your family finds the money. And so initially I used to pay people's hospital bills. And then I realized I couldn't take that to scale. You know, how many people can I pay for? So I started to capacitate 480 people every month into health insurance, community health insurance package that pregnancy. And that was really, really good, and it's still going because that encourages people actually to seek health while they are well, as opposed to seeking emergency care when they're ill. But I felt very, very strongly that health rights are fundamental rights.
Oh, yeah.
And I felt that we should put these rights in the hands of the women who are actually the ones nurturing the child from inside their womb. Because a lot of hospital records are kept in hospital and the patient doesn't have the right to that. And in the countries that have very low mortality rates and very high survival rates, they have one thing in common. A pregnant woman will hold her own health record throughout the pregnancy so that wherever she seeks care, the caregiver is informed.
Exactly.
And that was what made me develop and write the Nigeria Personal Health Record, which was adopted actually by the federal government as far back as I think 2007 or 8. And I've written many versions since, and they are copyrighted. And actually, it's the copyright royalties from that bear the foundation. So it's very rare that you will see me having a launching or asking people to give money. You know, my work is not really about money. My work is about demand creation for behavior orientation. I want a woman who is well to find out about herself and her body so that she knows how to stay well. And part of that is nutrition, part of that is sanitation, part of that is education. And I want a woman to be empowered with all those social determinant knowledge so that when she has a child, that child has the best chance of survival and the best chance to stay alive, to be nurtured and to thrive. And I know that the challenges in Nigeria look really, really big. You know, we have 172 million people, and we're the world's second largest contributor to preventable death. But I would like to call on our leaders that, look, all hope is not lost. Every single new pregnancy is a new chance to get it right. And childbirth is as old as time. We know what works. What works is very strong primary health care. What works is respectful maternity care. What works is hospitals that are allied or nearby to educational institutions. Now we have to begin to look at the intersections. You know, when money is tight, the economy is not too good at the moment.
Exactly.
You have to look at every investment you make having a double reward for it to be worth making. And I believe that there are intersections between health and education and financing. And I would love to see a situation in Nigeria where our health minister sits with our Minister of Education and sits with our Minister of Finance so that they can say, okay, when we're doing the immunization, we're going to do it during term time.
Oh, yes.
You know, so that first of all, we catch all the children that are in school, and then we begin to see how many children are out of school to know our unmet need. I would love to see, you know, Nigeria has some things that we could do very well. We did the BVNs very well when they were registering cards for banking. We did the voter registration cards very, very well when we were registering voters for the election. So why can't we register every pregnant woman in Nigeria and track her health? If we can track voters to deliver change in political democracy, I can't see why we can't track pregnant women and their newborns to deliver beneficial change in our reproductive health indices. I really believe, actually, now that we even have a refugee situation within the country with our internally displaced people, I think the time has come for us as Nigerians to count ourselves. And I don't mean a census. You know, I don't mean a pilot study or a sentinel study. I think it's time for us to count ourselves. Every man, woman, and child, to know where we live, to know what we have, to know what our government gives us, to know what we can do for ourselves, and to know what we can do for our government. I think we all have a role to play, an interlocutory role, where we speak for Nigeria and Nigeria speaks for us, and we act for Nigeria and Nigeria acts for us, and we look after Nigeria and Nigeria looks after for us. And if we can do this, if we can make a start with pregnant women, I think that's an easily costed start because a woman is pregnant 9 months.
Oh, yeah.
And there's a limit to the amount of medications a pregnant woman can take, actually. I think there's only 4 safe medications. So the rest of it is behavior orientation. And I think through the pregnant women and through the people who look after them, the midwives, who are the closest to them, I think we can actually show that a new Nigeria is possible. A newer and better and healthier and wealthier and stronger and more resilient Nigeria for a Nigeria where the future is truly assured.
And, that's the change that we want to see in Nigeria. And I can see that you are working towards that change. And I'm so glad you mentioned the fact that the reason you started your foundation, it was because you had also a similar, close experience to that. And you had to pay medical fees for some people, but you couldn't do it all by yourself, and that is where we need the government to come in, because the cost of medical service is very, very high in Nigeria. We have a lot of people who don't want to go to the hospital, except when it's really, really, really bad, they go to the hospital because they can't afford the medical bills, and we have the national health scheme, who doesn't really, cover the unemployed and the poor masses. So what is your organization doing, to make sure that these people get the medical coverage that they need?
Well, for Kwara State, we have a community health insurance scheme, which the Wellbeing Foundation supports. We contribute the capacitation fees for 480 people every single month, and it's throughout the state. It goes to 6,000. Now, I always felt that the community health insurance model was a model that would work better because it works on the natural human grouping. People live in communities. But I'm advised, actually, that the National Health Insurance Scheme is now adopting and integrating the community health model within their catchment areas. So I'm hoping that this will help the National Health Insurance Scheme be a lot more effective and go to scale. Certainly the Kwara scheme started, I think, with 20,000 and has gone to 300,000 very, very rapidly. Yes. And that's just one state that actually doesn't have oil allocation or whatever excuses it is that sometimes administrations make. There's no doubt that political will is important, but legislation is also very, very important. When I was the First Lady, I sponsored a bill called the Kwara State Safe Maternity Services Act, and that imposed a minimum standard for medical facilities where childbirth was to take place. And the government supported that, actually, by also providing subsidized equipment. And this is something I think should be all over Nigeria. It's time to allow regulatory agencies to actually be pro-diligence and pro-beneficial outcomes as opposed to being punitive. I would like to see a situation where regulatory agencies in Nigeria actually set the standard that people aspire to reach, as opposed to setting a minimum standard with a great big stick to bang them on the head if they don't achieve it. If you look at the countries where they have made significant progress in a very short time, you realize that their governments enact very positive legislation and very, very positive policies and put the help in place. So you uplift your people and you encourage your people to reach up. And I think that's very true of all humanity. Even when you're training a child to walk, you don't stand with a stick and beat the child every time he falls. You hold his hand and you say, let's take a step and let's take another step. I think if we could adopt that, we would really do a lot better.
Yeah, we will go fast.
And our people would be happier. And happier people are more productive people.
Oh, yes. And you also mentioned something about child immunization earlier on. And we have a lot of children, especially in the rural area in Nigeria, who are unimmunized against, childhood killer diseases. And what are you doing? I know that you're an activist, but what are you doing to make sure that these children, they get the immunization they need?
You know, when I was the First Lady, I really, really supported the government immunization programs. And it's very important to be very frank and very honest. All immunization programs in Nigeria are government programs. So the only thing a private sector individual or maybe a political spouse can do is to encourage people to be immunized. Now, it's quite funny when we say access to this and access to that. We keep talking about access to immunization, access to health. But to be honest, if you have a conscience, we shouldn't be talking about access to this and that. We should be taking the immunization to the people where they are. We should be taking health to our people where they are. Our people pay taxes. So this actually is not a discretion. This is a duty. It's an obligation.
Yeah.
And I know certainly that when I was the First Lady, I supported the Kwara State Ministry of Health and the Ministry of Social Welfare and the Ministry of Women Affairs to make sure that every child in that state was immunized. So much so that when we heard of a case of polio, I think in 2006, we had one case of polio in local government area called Barrington. I could say quite confidently that it's impossible. That child is not a Kwara. I know that every child in Kwara has been immunized against polio. And when they insisted that this case was there, I went to that community and discovered that actually the child had come across the border with his parents 3 days before. And I was like, because I know I've been to every single ward. And I could say with confidence that every child in the state had been immunized. But that was because we kept records. You know, the health record that I designed was primarily an immunization record, but I expanded it to record other things, dental health, whether a house had running water, whether the person had sanitary facilities inside the house or outside the house, because these are all the things that determine your well-being. And you know, well-being for most people in Nigeria is still a luxury, because well-being isn't just your health. Well-being is your health, your education, your mental health, your earning capacity, and but it's something that I've been focused on for many years, and it's something I will never give up on. So we just have to keep working and hope for the best.
All right. And you know, this conference today, this conference meeting is all about empowering women all over the world. And you, as the wife of the Senate President, you know much more about, you know, empowering women, you know, making women do better and believing in themselves and know that they can do more. They have a lot to, you know, to support with in the society. And, you know, like most Nigerian women, again, in the rural area, most of them are very poor and uneducated. And what is the government doing to, you know, to make this better?
You know, I can't really speak for government because I'm not a member of government and I never have been. I'm an observer and a supporter of government. But what I will tell you is that never to make the mistake of thinking because somebody is in supposedly a high position that they know it all. I certainly don't know that. But one thing I do know is that when I want to work with people, irrespective of where they are, and I have a lot of respect actually for people who live in rural communities because it takes a lot more ruggedness and resilience to do well in a rural community. What I found is that the secrets of the success in that community usually lie in that community if you give them respect and you respect them enough to ask them. So what is your challenge here? And what do you think is your solution? And then you can help them.
That was it from Her Excellency, and it was really, really a pleasure to have her on the Real Talk show with Miss-Vivi. And I hope you guys enjoyed the show, and I will see you on the next one.